Let's dive deeper into the dark hole to see how darker it gets. We will take a look to see in the past what happened to real herbal medicine and how chemical synthetic medicine become what we know now as Western medicine. Also, did you know it's illegal to cure without FDA approval or medical licenses? Let's dive deeper to discover what happened and why. It all began with John D. Rockefeller, 1839 to 1937, who was an oil magnate and robber baron, America's first billionaire, and a natural-born monopolist. By the turn on the 20th century, he controlled 90% of all oil refineries in the U.S. through his oil company, Standard Oil, which was later on broken up to become Chevron, Exxon, and Mobil. World Affairs report. At the same time, around 1900, scientists discovered pharmaceuticals and the ability to create all kinds of chemicals from oil. For example, the first plastic called Bakelite was made from oil in 1907. Scientists were discovering various vitamins and guessed that many pharmaceutical drugs could be made from oil. This was a wonderful opportunity for Rockefeller, who saw the ability to monopolize the oil, chemical, and the medical industries at the same time. The best thing about pharmaceuticals was that everything could be patented and sold for high profits. But there was one problem with Rockefeller's plan for the medical industry. Natural herbal medicines were very popular in America at that time. Almost half the doctors and medical colleges in the U.S. were practicing holistic medicine, using knowledge from Europe and Native Americans. Rockefeller, the monopolist, had to figure out a way to get rid of his biggest competition. So he used the classic strategy of problem reaction solution. That is, create a problem and scare people, and then offer a pre-planned solution. He went to his friend Andrew Carnegie, another business mogul who made his money from monopolizing the steel industry, who devised a scheme. From the prestigious Carnegie Foundation, they sent a man named Abraham Flexner to travel around the country and report on the status of medical colleges and hospitals around the country. This led to the Flexner Report, which gave birth to the modern medicine as we know it. The report talked about the need for revamping and centralizing our medical institutions. Based on this report, more than half of all medical colleges were soon closed. Home medicine and natural medicines were mocked and demonized, and doctors were even jailed. To help with the transition and change the minds of other doctors and scientists, Rockefeller gave more than $100 million to colleges, hospitals, and founded a philanthropic front group called General Education Board. In a very short time, medical colleges were all streamlined and homogenized. All the students were learning the same thing, and medicine was all about using patent drugs. Scientists received huge grants to study how plants cured diseases, but their goal was to first identify which chemicals in the plant were effective and then recreate a similar synthetic chemical but not identical in the lab that could be patented. A pill for an ill became the mantra for modern medicine, and you thought that wasn't ill. Let's take a deeper look. So now we are 100 years later, teaching and hiring doctors who know nothing about the benefits of nutrition or herbs or any holistic practices. We have an entire society that is enslaved to corporations for its well-being. America spent 15% of its GDP on healthcare, which should be really called sick care. It is focused not on cure, but only on symptoms, thus creating repeat customers. There is no cure for cancer, diabetes, autism, asthma, or even flu. Why would there be real cures? You must ask yourself this question. This is a system founded by anarchists, oligarchs, and plutocrats, not by doctors. As for cancer, this one you need to take a deeper look into. The American Cancer Society was founded by none other than Rockefeller in 1913. And as we go deeper down this rabbit hole, you must discover and will learn the truth.
You see, if we're going to change where we're going, we need to know where we've been. And that's why history is so important. Because as the old saying goes, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it.
So I don't need to go any further. You can understand when the money is coming from a source which has a vested interest in the outcome. Now what's going to happen is the outcome is going to be what the donor wants it to be generally. So this is the problem, and that goes back even further in time to the turn of the last century, when the Rockefeller Group and the Carnegie Group actually came together, and they decided that they would reform medical education in America.
At the time of the late 1800s, early 1900s, 20th century, medical schools taught a lot of different things. There were homeopathic medical schools, there were naturopathic schools, there were eclectic herbal type medicine schools, and so it was all there. There was not one way. And what happened was that the Rockefeller and Carnegie foundations were interested in establishing the one way. How would they do that? Well, they would get a hold of the education system and create a medical monopoly via basically eliminating all competition to patent petrochemical medical education. That's the Flexner Report of 1910, it became known. Abraham and Simon Flexner, were hired to do this. It was a preordained commissioned report.
Not surprisingly, the basis of the report was that it was far too easy to start a medical school and that most schools were not teaching sound medicine. Let me translate this for you. These natural health colleges were not pushing enough chemical drugs manufactured by who? Carnegie and Rockefeller. The AMA, who were evaluating the various medical colleges, made it their job to target and shut down the larger respected homeopathic colleges. Carnegie and Rockefeller began to immediately shower hundreds of millions of dollars on these medical schools that were teaching drug-intensive medicine.
Oh, by the way, when they donated the money, the donors would say, well, now we've given you a lot of money and we know you're going to do the right thing with it, but would you object if we had someone from our staff appointed to your board of directors, just to make sure that just to see how our money is being spent, you know? Well, that was really a condition of getting the money, so you know the university said, well, that would be fine. Anybody that you would suggest would be, I'm sure, more than adequate. So they began to load up the boards of directors of these teaching centers with people who literally were on the payroll of the donors. So once that was in place, the curriculum of the universities, the teaching centers, swung completely in the direction of pharmaceutical drugs, and it has remained that way ever since.
Predictably, those schools that had the financing churned out the better doctors. Oh, wait a minute. Or should I say, the more recognized doctors. In return for the financing, the schools were required to continue teaching course material that was exclusively drug-oriented, with no emphasis on natural medicine. By 1925, over 10,000 herbalists were out of business. By 1940, over 1,500 chiropractors would be prosecuted for practicing quackery. The 22 homeopathic medical schools that flourished in the 1900s dwindled down to just 2 by 1923. By 1950, all the schools teaching homeopathy were closed. In the end, if a physician did not graduate from a Flexner-approved medical school and receive an MD degree, then he or she could not find a job anywhere. This is why today MDs are so heavily biased towards synthetic drug therapy and know little about nutrition, if anything.
Now this whole medical field has been skewed in the direction of pharmaceutical drugs, which can be patented and produce great profits for the producers. And then the next step is that means that anything coming from nature is excluded, and that's where we think, some of us think, that most of the promise lies in these very complex substances found in herbs and plants and trees and things like that, seeds. Some of us feel that it was probably meant to be that way, you know? And so you come out of all of this analysis and all of this history with the realization that the medical profession is really like a lapdog of the pharmaceutical industry. And most of the doctors have no idea that that's the case. They don't understand this history.